Section number 4 of Letters from the Relentless Pursuit. This section is entitled The Motherfucking Saints. This was written in fall of 2012. It's a retrospective look at the history of the band. But, well, with that said, what it is it's taken from a lot of old journal entries and whatnot. So this is some real old writing all compiled in 2012. Let there be rock. In our house growing up, there was no AM radio played. There was no classic country. There was no oldies. I was raised on old AC/DC. It was Black Sabbath and Lynyrd Skynyrd. It was Nazareth and Jimi Hendrix. It was Led Zeppelin and Blackfoot. I can remember hardly being old enough to walk and seeing my dad standing up, leaning against that big old homemade wooden entertainment center he had. He would chain smoke Marlboro Reds and slam down Budweiser a case at a time. He'd have the beat up old stereo equipment cranked up to distortion until the early morning hours. This foundation and attitude is where the motherfucking Saints was built on. I feel like I'm lucky I was a misfit. I hated being a kid. I hated school. I hated church. I hated most everyone around me. I hated high school. I sincerely wished I was normal, while on the outside reacting with anger and defiance to almost everyone and everything around me. I hated the students who conformed and obeyed and cared about succeeding. I hated the kids who drank and smoked to fit in. I hated the prude, uptight girls. I hated the trendy, tasteless fucking music that the male students listened to and their bullshit sports team regalia they wore. Basically, I just hated followers, and high school was a follower's paradise. This is probably why bands like the Dead Kennedys and Minor Threat spoke to me so profoundly, and they probably saved me from putting a slug through my skull. These bands spoke about the trite, shallow attitude that dominates youth culture and then follows people into their cliche adult life. The consumerism, the drugs, the mindlessness, the apathy, all these things were a part of these phony, stupid people's lives. These bands attacked it and I loved it. I love the confrontational attitude real punk rock is known for. I was a child of the 90s. Lucky me. The economy was booming. The U.S. was not at war overseas. Bill Clinton was president. The internet was connecting the whole world. 9/11 was something my generation couldn't even comprehend before it happened. Everyone was so fucking happy with their perfect little lives. This apathetical attitude was translated in the shit music of the late 90s. Kids my age at the time thought Blink-182, with all their nauseating fluff, was punk rock. They thought Korn, with their putrid rap metal sound and self-absorbed crybaby lyrics, was metal. Slipknot, with all their contrived aggression, became the standard for all the kids who thought they were hardcore. And Fred Durst and Kid Rock made it cool to be a rock star again. Fucking fuck them both. This all fit in well with the gluttonous, bloated climate that dominated the time period, and you couldn't escape it. Every little cunt could go to Hot Topic and spend away and get outfitted with the latest rock uniform. Of course, thanks to their parents' money. I was surrounded by weak, heartless little fucks who were enamored with all this nonsense that our media and culture fed them. They soaked it up like sponges. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of senseless shit. Of course, Lincoln, Nebraska, where I was from, was rampant with pussy bubblegum punk and ridiculous rap metal of the late 90s and early 2000s. At one point, we as a band were banned from playing a year and a half in our own hometown. Now, my first concert was age 10. After that, it was game over. I've told this story before, but at age 10, my mom and dad took me and my brother Ben to a Metallica concert, and there was no going back from there. Now, I know that Metallica has long been the benchmark for all that is wrong with contemporary rock music, and has been irrelevant for well over 20 years now, but the atmosphere of the wasteland that is a rock show, that was the first time where I felt like I was at home. There's a smell of sweat and booze and weed and hormones. All the slutty dressed women who probably have long since died of STDs or meth addiction, rather. The acne-riddled youth who had nothing to live for but would give anything to never leave the safe place which is the arena floor. That moment when the lights went down, it still gives me goosebumps. Still makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck. Now, at a very young age, It was drilled into me that if you're going to speak, you say something. As much as the sound of the band was shaped by the music that me and Ben grew up listening to, the lyrics came from a different place. As I stated above, the contempt I felt for the environment around me was a big influence on my writing. However, equally as influential was the opinionated Union Democrat family I was raised in. My grandma and grandpa lived up the gravel road from the house where I was at. Grandpa was an old World War II vet who had survived the Battle of the Bulge and had spent the rest of his life working every day as a heavy equipment operator and as an independent farmer. When we were out working in the fields, he would pull out the paper and would rant with disgust about the groupthink nature of our society. He hated lying, he hated greed, he hated selfishness. These qualities were all trademarks of the Reagan era and then later under the Bush regimes. As you can imagine, his opinions were not popular in the red state of good old Nebraska, but he spoke his mind and he spoke the truth. It's a similar story with my dad. He and my mom quit high school and got married as teenagers. By age 18, he was working long, hard hours at the railroad. I've always found it ironic that my dad, with no formal education to speak of, is more politically informed than any social science professor I've ever met. The fact is, I have never seen anyone win a political argument against my dad. The bottom line is this: the Christian right has fucked this country up bad. In conjunction, so is the grand old party with all their pandering to the most ignorant, Walmart-dwelling, McDonald's-eating, Fox News morons. They are stealing our country away under the banner of patriotism. Don't let them take away our rights. Don't trust the media. Don't appeal to their authority. It is our duty as Americans to support dissent and question our government. Never be afraid to fight for whatever you believe in. And never back down just because they threaten punishment or consequences. Now with that all said, back to the sound of the band. And that sound is noise, motherfucker noise. Now I spent the first year and a half really not knowing how to tune my guitar or play a chord, and I still really don't. I grew up playing my cheap guitar through a shitty amp cranked to distortion. People have asked me over the years, how did you come up with your tone? Well, it's a very simple answer: lack of talent and training. You can hear the same quality in my playing as you can hear in my vocals, and that's the sound of contempt. Ben never took a drum lesson. He didn't need to. He hears and feels music like no one else I've ever met. The speed and precision that he plays with comes from an obsessive-compulsive nature, compounded with countless hours of listening to music with his heart, and not with his ears. Without my brother's talent, the Motherfuck'n Saints may have just been another hardcore band. His playing made us fast and aggressive, not monotonous and mundane like others in the genre. Neither of us never learned how to read a bit of music. Big fucking surprise. All we ever knew was what we were brought up on, and that was speed, that was volume, rhythm, noise. And really, what the fuck else do you need to know? So in closing, if you can't tell, this music was never meant to please. It was never meant to garner any kind of money or success. This was always music that was supposed to be for the people, by the people. Never giving an inch, never letting popular opinion or commercial trends dictate the direction of this music. No playing politics, no ass kissing. What you see and hear is what you get. To put it quite simply, this is a product of a couple brothers who started playing in sheds and barns in southeast Nebraska because no one wanted teenagers playing our kind of music at their venues in Lincoln and Omaha. Nowadays, on those long drives on the road from gig to gig, I wonder where all of them are at now.